Hey guys, Andy and Spoken Label back in the house. Second podcast of the day. Yes, thankfully it's a bit cooler. Now, the lady I've got with me today is obviously doesn't know how bloody hot it's been in the UK today. I've been boiling. So sat in my little study, sweltering before. Anyway, listen, on Spoken Label. We have a returning guest today as well, and I've had this lady on, which worked, 3 years ago now. I just don't know where the time flies. We've got a fantastic Alison Nissen with us today. Now, Alison's going to introduce herself in a moment, but I love the quote in her website. So I'm going to quote it and before Alison can say anything else. Alison Nissen is a writer that does daily backer with dog hair and laundry. How are you, Alison, since the last time we spoke?
Oh, Andy, I am doing very well. Thank you. I am in Houston and it's also very hot here. So I totally get it.
How hot is it in Houston at the moment?
It's probably mid 90s.
Yeah, it's hotter than us. Hotter than us. I think us English people just like moaning. We just like moaning about the first bit of remote heat we get. We moan about it. So anyway, I said before, Alison, you were on a couple of years ago. I can't believe where the time goes. So we're going to do a part of catch up today, and obviously then the people that don't know you from last time will then talk about what projects you're involved in at the moment and what's coming up. So obviously, first of all, Alison, obviously I know you've done a lot of work, but I want to go all the way back to school first of all, because a lot of your work, like mine, I think has been a reaction against your case. You're undiagnosed dyslexic at school, weren't you?
Yes. Yes. I always struggled. I always knew that something was screwy. And when my oldest child was young, we had to visit a neurologist and the neurologist was like, "Oh, and by the way, you have dyslexia too." And I was like, "Oh, well, that explains a lot."
Yeah, it definitely does. Because, like in my case, it is my mum. I'm dyspraxic, which is like, I don't, if you know what dyspraxia is, it's not as common, but that's a coordination disease as well as dyslexia. And I struggled all my time at school, and it kind of made me more stubborn and focused in direction. I went like you have, I know for a fact. So that's one thing I want people to know that first of all. Now, obviously, I know you graduated from you came with a couple of BA and an MA, haven't you, in literature
I
and
have.
tell us about that first of all,
Yes.
then on to next.
Tell us
Tell us about
about
that. Tell us about that. Sorry, yes, my
yeah.
English accent.
Uh, I know. It's probably my American accent too. Is okay. Um, I will tell you. So high school was always a struggle. The red pen was just everywhere. My papers bled red. That's what I like to say. And I went to college, and I wrote a paper, and I spelled the same word wrong 9 times. And the professor took off 5 points for each misspelling. So I failed my essay because I spelled the same word wrong 9 times.
Oh,
I was totally heartbroken. This was before spell check, in case anybody is wondering. So that little squiggly red line that your computer will add to your documents, that saved my life. Had I not had that, I don't know where I'd be right now, but it started to give me confidence. When spell check first came out, I was a senior in college, and I started to play a game with myself because it would give you it would say, "Oh, this word isn't in my database," but it wouldn't tell you what the right word was. So I'd still have to go look it up. So I started to play a game like guess the correct spelling. And each time I would go through and then try to find the word like in the dictionary. A lot of times I couldn't find the word in the dictionary. I mean, my spelling was so wrong that I wasn't even like the first letter wasn't even the right letter. So my spelling was so wrong. I learned how to figure out other words. And that is what led me to being a strong writer. I I had to play the game with myself of, okay, if you can't think of it that way, what is another way you can think of it? And so dyslexia has taught me that I can just look at problems from another point of view. And when I flip it around, I can see the answer so much clearer. And it made me a stronger writer because I would be searching for what I wanted to say. and I'd have to say it in a more clear way so that I could get my point across without that one word that I was looking for. And that one word, who knows if it was even the right word. So it forced me to be creative. And in doing so, it forced me to be a better communicator.
Perfect. Same for me as well. That's what I was looking forward to having you on today. We could compare notes almost on this straight away. Hey, I think it makes you more single-minded as well, actually, Alison, with it as well. Because when I was at university, when I got diagnosed with it basically made me think to myself at the time, I thought, I'm going to have to work twice as hard as everybody else did. So I can relate to this. Now, I want to learn, first of all, what led you down the ghostwriting?
I wanted to, well, I had been a professor and my husband and I moved. And so I was no longer working. And when I was a professor, I was passed over for a position because my competition had written a book. I decided, you know what? It's time for me to write a book. I'm not working right now. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to write that book. And I started to write, and I think I got about 45,000 words into this giant novel that I couldn't complete, but I still wanted to write. And somebody just out of the clear blue sent me an email and asked me to write their story. And it was heartbreaking and horrific. It was a true crime story. There was murder. There was court cases. It was really a really heartbreaking story that he could not tell himself. But to me, I was like, oh my gosh, this has all the juicy stuff you want to have as a writer. And so I thought, well, you know what? Why not? So I learned to be a good listener. I learned to distill his information. I learned to capture his voice, which are all very important when you want to be a ghostwriter. And it was a great training ground at that point. I gained a little bit of, I don't want to call it notoriety, but I gained a little bit of popularity in the town I was living. And there was like a newspaper article written, and because his story had been a true crime story, a lot of people knew it. And other people started connecting with me, so word of mouth, about writing their stories. And I would do a lot of writing or ghost editing is what a lot of times they would come to me with a manuscript that wasn't quite ready to be completed. So through a series of interviews, I would be able to take that manuscript and turn it into something that they would be proud of and they could pursue publishing with.
Brilliant.
And so that's how I started with ghostwriting, and that's where it's led me.
Brilliant. Now, if people want to check out the podcast from 3 years ago, which I still can't believe it's 3 years ago, horrified in that, they will see the list of all the books that you've ghostwritten. And I want to generally ask you in this, obviously, I want to do a different approach today. Obviously, like, without going through all the books one by one, was it quite a challenge going from various writer to various writer? Because obviously they all had different needs, didn't they? Different styles and stuff.
The challenge with being a ghostwriter is to capture the voice of the author and to put your ego aside. So I cannot have an ego in the arena at all. So my ego is gone. That doesn't mean I don't come home and I'm not frustrated and dismayed by something because it's not mine. You know, it's I'm giving it to them. It's in many ways it's a gift. And it's something that I'm proud of, and it's not for everybody, but it's definitely something that can satisfy that writing need that you have as a creative.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. Actually, my wife's done some ghostwriting since the last time we spoke a couple of years ago, and it's an interesting. I think it's an interesting experience for writers to have a go at anyone trying to do that. I couldn't do it, so you've got my love and respect for doing it because I'd probably end up having no hair left if I tried it. So yeah, brilliant, brilliant for you. Now, obviously, this has led into Free Dogtails Productions. Then tell us about what Free Dogtails Productions is.
I created 3 dog tails because you have to have a holding company, so to speak, for your stuff. And I started to use it to as my tagline. And initially I had 3 dogs, which is where I
Ah,
got the name from, 3 dog tails, and I played on the word tails. So now I'm down to 1 dog and she's adorable. She has enough hair for all 3 of them. However, I now use it for if I'm writing something and I want to put if I'm going to publish something, I will use it as my imprint, so to speak.
yeah, I like the name of it. I think it's really cute actually as well. So, with people wondering, I've already met your one dog today as well, and that is definitely a handful enough for 3 dogs there, definitely. So, with the amount of hair that comes out, so I can understand you straight away with that. Brilliant. Okay, now also on top of it as well, I know also you've got another project on with your sister, haven't you? A Revel Coach. So, tell us about Revel Coach next.
My sister and I started a journey about 5.5 years ago together. Our mother had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's and was starting to fade away. She had been our go-to, both of us. We would talk to our mom every day. And because our mom wasn't quite the same, so my sister and I started to talk together. And I was doing my ghostwriting, and she had just left her career, her corporate career, and wanted to do something else. And we decided, you know what, let's do something together. So we created a coaching platform. We named it Revel Coach, and we work with executives to help attract and retain talent and workforce so that they can produce more revenue. So really it's a win-win for anyone who's looking to grow their businesses, because you get to work with us, which of course is fun. You, you get to work with us, but we also provide the tools to continue being able to grow on your own and gain the confidence that you need in order to continue to thrive in a tough economic environment.
Yes, I can believe you with that one straight away. Now, is it quite a challenge running, obviously, Revel Coach and obviously then on top of it, 3 Dogtails Productions at the same time? It's like that's 2 separate businesses, basically, isn't it? So, is it the case where sometimes you can be massively busy in one and massively busy in the other?
I I'm pretty good at dividing my time. I also work as a professor, so I do have divided my time in segments. I love time blocking so that I can work a little bit here and a little bit there, and I can just focus on what I need to in front of me rather than trying to do everything all at once. Try to do everything all at once, it just won't work. So I am pretty good about that. Because I work out of the house most of the time, I'm able to work on the weekends. I'm able to work in my free time. So if my husband's traveling or if he's not home from the office until 6 or 7, I can just keep on writing and working, and I'm able to divide my time that way. I'm also an empty nester, so good for me. It's that also frees up a lot of time. I'm not having to do all the parenting tasks that I did at one point in my life.
Yeah, fair play to you there straight away. At least you've got the peace, well, to a degree, you've got the peace and quiet that you didn't have when you were younger, basically. So, and also, like, you don't have the endless laundry baskets nowadays, anyway. So, that's a blessing as well. So, yeah,
There is much less laundry. Yes.
good. Okay. Now, obviously, people are wondering as well. I've just been featured on your podcast as well, Florida Writer Podcast as well, which is a great podcast. Always enjoy tuning into your podcast, Alison, I do when I get a chance to it, because I learn a lot from it. Now, for people that don't know, obviously, you better tell us about where the idea of this podcast came from.
I had been the president of the Florida Writers Association and thought, well, you know what? We need a podcast and I'm going to be the one to host it. Might have been a little cocky at the time, but that was in 2019. I started in 2018. And the first one was released in January of 2019. I have been, I'd like to say I produce a podcast once a week. I sometimes fall short, but we are up to, I think, 218 podcasts that are out. And I have learned so much from a variety of writers. So like you, Andy, you have an entirely different style than the last guest I had. And, I talk to industry influencers, I talk to marketers and publishers and editors, and I'm able to ask them about the writing process, which to me is what my passion is. I'm probably more passionate about how people write and how they learn to write than the actual writing itself. Okay, let's face it, writing is hard.
Yes,
Anyone who
not
tells you
easy.
writing is not hard, yeah, they haven't tried it.
Oh yeah, that's a show of it. Oh man, I haven't told you yet, but I had to go out around. Amanda, my wife, dared me the other night to have a go at writing a romance story. And for me, I'm more of a, well, I was more of a poet. And like I sat down trying to write it, and I thought to myself, oh, this is hard. This is really difficult. I mean, you're really trying to do forms, aren't you? You've not tried before. It's not easy.
It is not easy.
Okay, on Campus Rebel, you come up with a great quote here now, and like the three rules of success. And I wanted to ask you about this because this is something new to me, and I thought we could definitely push you, have a debate about this. Is show up, do the work, and ask questions. Do you want to tell us a bit more about that?
You know what? It really does stem from my dyslexia, because it's so easy to get frustrated and want to throw your hands up in the air and just walk away. But if you don't show up, like showing up is always the first step, right? You have to show up. You have to show up in your own life, in your own projects, in your own goals. You have to show up every day. You just have to show up, right? So like that's like the first step of anything, is just showing up and then doing the work. And the work could be just a tiny, tiny bit, or it could be a big chunk, but it doesn't matter. As long as you show up and you do the work, you're going to start feeling momentum. But the key is to ask questions, because if you don't know, somebody has already figured something out and you can piece together the puzzles, but you might have to ask some questions. So I used to be horribly shy. Okay, anyone who knows me would say no way, but I would be very self-conscious, assuming that other people were thinking bad things about me. It was just where I went. And that again could be that I, received a lot of criticism in school as a child, which again, it seems like crazy now, but the things I learned was if I just showed up and if I did the work and then I continued to ask questions to make sure that my work was on target, and I would continue to show up, you could see where it just sort of circles around. So as long as you show up, you do the work and you ask questions, you're going to be able to move that ball forward. When you can move that ball forward, you are going to have momentum in whatever it is that your goal is. It might take you 10 years. It might take you 10 minutes. But sometimes you just got to start with, you just got to start.
True. I'm always believing, like, as writers, you've got to be, like you said, and I agree with you completely here. You've got to be evolving all the time and pushing yourself. And like, I think in our case, it was both dyslexic and dyspraxic. I think it's twice as hard, really. But yeah, I think you're right. Doing what you said there, you can't just turn up and wing it. I think you're put in that world for this reason, to challenge yourself and keep fighting all the time on it. But I think that's a great saying you come up with there, and I agree with you completely with that one. So definitely with that. So how have you found then? Obviously, since you've gone into doing like your ghostwriting, backtracking, how has your approach changed using this? What you're saying there, basically, because I know you deal with so many writers, don't you? So has it got easier?
It's gotten easier because I've become more selective in my projects. That's a that's a definite benefit. But I've dealt with the hardest part about ghostwriting is dealing with Okay, it's going to sound funny. The hardest part about ghostwriting is dealing with people.
Yeah.
You're dealing with personalities, and the reason that they choose to hire the reason somebody chooses to hire a ghostwriter, every reason is different. Every person has a different motivation. Some people do not have the confidence. Some people don't have the time. Some people are just confused. They're not sure where to go with the information they have, but they feel like it should be a book. But you can't create a book for somebody else if they don't have a good story behind it. And so someone just giving you the same information over and over again will not help push that book forward. And so maybe that goes back to the asking questions. So I, as a ghostwriter, I need to show up, right? I'll make an appointment and I'll be there. And then I need to do the work that's expected of me. But it does come down to asking questions. And sometimes I need to ask the same question 5 different ways in order to get what I'm looking for.
Yeah. Yeah, I get you straight away. I do, like it's a case of this gathering the information. And so I think in a few ways in this, Alison, what I think you'd be really good at is being a private detective, actually, in some ways. You're always like having to gather clues all the time, aren't you, straight away with it? So is there any book? Do you want to tell us what you're working on at the moment then? Is there anything you can reveal?
Well, right now I'm working on my own project, which is really cool. It's always fun when you can do your own thing and toot your own horn, which is exciting. But I am starting a group coaching platform for people who want to write a book,
Oh,
because I don't know about you, but once you tell someone that you're a writer, everybody says, "Oh, I want to write a book." And some people really do want to write a book. Some people are just saying they would like to write a book. But for those people that would like to write a nonfiction book, and that could be something that they've solved a problem in their own life. Let's just even take dyslexia, for example. I've solved the problem of how I can use it to my advantage, right? I've created a system and a solution so that I am not stuck behind a diagnosis. And I would like to share that with the world. So let's suppose I would like to write a book about not just my journey, but how other people can be inspired and move their own ball forward so that they can too thrive in their own circumstances. So I'm creating a group coaching, a mastermind where people can come and basically write their books together using what I am calling Write Your Book Now. So I'm working on finishing up Write Your Book Now workbook so that people can have that, and they could either join the class or they can have it on their own and follow that as a lead and as a guidebook so that they can narrow down the important information that's required to be in a book.
brilliant. So is this going to be like on? So you said it's on an online platform. Will this be available as a book as well, or is it just going to be on the online platform? Is it like video tutorials and things like that? Are you doing?
I plan to, yeah. So I would very much like it to be an Amazon book. It's cute. I have really fun graphics in there. It's not long. Hopefully it's not boring. So many books are you order them with all expectations of it being exciting, and then you look at it and you're like, oh no. So I hope to avoid that. And I do plan to have a bunch of tutorials that I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to do those, but I would like to put them on, Instagram and Reels and YouTube shorts, just little tiny bits of information that people can use for whatever project they're working on that requires words.
Yeah, that sounds a fantastic project straight away. I think you like I said, is when you're doing something like this, it's one of those sort of things where you can make a mountain out of a molehill if you're not careful, can't you? With constantly putting things up here, there, and everywhere, trying to work out how to publicize it. Well, good luck with that straight away. So like I said, you can do little bits on YouTube and Instagram as well. Would you do it as a subscription package as well? Would you, or is that still to be decided?
That would be to be decided. I have a feeling that's probably out of my wheelhouse. And we do what we can do.
Yeah,
And it when you have a lot going on, if you throw one extra ball in the air, you could lose everything. And
yeah,
I don't want to do that. So I think I'm going to stick to what I can work out on my own.
yeah. No, it makes sense. Makes sense. Like I said, is the last thing you do is you have your head explode, or and then basically have a football coming down, crashing through a glass house to smash everything. So yeah, I get you completely, and I can sympathise there straight away. So brilliant. Good luck with that, definitely. So, do you have any sort of idea when that you're looking at releasing this yet, or is that TBA?
TBA in a month or so.
Oh, is it really? Is it really that near? I didn't realize it. Oh, wow.
I was actually putting it on, I don't know, there's a platform called Designer, and they create flip books. So a couple of years ago I bought a subscription to that. I took advantage of the pay once and have it forever. So
Wow.
I was able to put it on there just to see what it looks like. And the benefit of doing something like that, when you put it out as a flip book, even if you don't send the link out, you know what it's looking like. You know where the pages are lining up. You know where, if, oh, I need a blank page here. So if you look at a book, I mean, a lot of people don't look at the anatomy of a book itself. When you look at the anatomy, you have the very first page is actually on the right side. It's not on the left side. And, so that, like, right there, if people don't know, they don't pay attention, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. Like, so all the odd numbers are on the right side and the even numbers are on the left side, which, just little things like that you have to make sure are lined up. And so when you are creating an online book, you want it to be as professional looking as possible. And that's what the Three Dog Tales Productions was really about, was the producing of books. And while I don't have many under the imprint itself, I have been able to study and use a lot of what I've learned to create a handful of books. So that's been fun.
Sounds like it straight away with that, because I know, like, I've done all kinds of various projects myself and that sort of stuff. And my wife's Amanda's incredible what she does, and we're a great team. But you're doing it all by yourself, and that's not. I think you're right. I think always look at creativity as I go on the line to A to Z, and everything's moving along at a natural progression point for you. And I think this is a great time for you to do this with all the experience you've gained, certainly in the last couple of years and everything. And so good luck with it, definitely. So. Right, well, that's covered all my questions really anyway here. So we'll let you do the hard sell now, or the soft sell. So how can people get hold of you first of all, Alison, if they wish to speak to you?
Alison@revelcoach.com would be the easiest way to get in touch with me. And that's ALISON at Revel, REVEL COACH. So it's not Rebel, it's Revel. So Alison@revelcoach.com.
Brilliant. And obviously for the new project then, have you got a HTTP sorted out for this yet, have you? Or is that best to keep an eye on your social media and it'll come up when it comes up when it's ready?
You can go to Revel Coach, so revelcoachstory.com. And if you click on Write Now, WRITE now, you'll find a landing page.
Brilliant. Great. I was hoping you got that sorted. Brilliant. Good to me, Alison. Right, everybody. We're going to take a quick break. I've actually really enjoyed this today, Alison. So thank you. So we should be back in 2 shakes of the dice when Alison's going to do some little extra extract or something. See you all then.